Hi there, this is Jen Kitzmiller with the National Weather Service in Missoula, and I have your recorded planning briefing from Thursday, September 1st. So despite the fact that today is September 1st and we are meteorologically headed into fall, we are going to continue to see abnormally hot and dry, more summer-like conditions going into mid next week. A couple concerns we have with that in particular is Saturday, in which we're expecting a mostly dry cold front to move through the region, producing windy conditions and critical fire weather. And then moving into the rest of the weekend and early next week, it's going to be slightly cooler, but still looking at breezy conditions each afternoon, with the potential for a pattern change to cooler and possibly wetter late next week. So here's a look at the current satellite imagery. A couple features I'll point out: this low pressure system off the Pacific Northwest coastline, that's going to be influencing our weather here with a dry cold front as we move into Saturday. Otherwise, we've got a high pressure ridge, a rather strong one over the area, and that's going to remain in place really going even into next week, although it does get maybe suppressed a bit after this low pressure system moves through. So talking about Friday, this looks like a day that the ridge is going to be firmly in place. So that's going to be increasing our temperatures once again to well above normal conditions. We'll be talking about most valleys seeing 90s, even 100 degrees in some of the lower valleys of central Idaho. With that, we're also going to be looking at some very dry air in place. So in particular, we'll be seeing strong thermal belts Friday morning and again Friday night to Saturday morning, and very low afternoon RHs. And just to illustrate that, this is the forecasted max and min humidities for Friday. And you'll see on the left here are maximum humidities, and in the terrain in particular will likely only be recovering into that 20 to 30% range for a lot of locations. And then for minimum humidities during the day Friday, we'll be looking at pretty widespread teens across all of western Montana and north central Idaho. And I will say there is even some potential to see some single digit RHs. If that's to occur, it looks most likely through central Idaho and into southwest Montana. Now Saturday is kind of a day that's standing out to us as a potential critical fire weather day because that ridge of ridge of high pressure is going to start to be suppressed by that low pressure system that I showed you that's currently off the Pacific Northwest coast, and that's going to be dragging through a mostly dry cold front. I say mostly dry because it does look like Saturday evening as this low pressure system moves through, there may be enough moisture for some showers and thunderstorms across northwest Montana, but really the main concern with this is going to be the windy conditions that we're expecting as that cold front moves through. And in particular, the timing of that cold front looks such that it'll be moving through southwest Montana during the hottest and driest time of day. So that creates conditions that could be especially problematic for fire. Here's a look at some potential wind gusts with the front on Saturday afternoon and evening. Pretty widespread, we'll be looking at gusts 20 to 25 miles per hour, but in particular across southwest Montana up to about Missoula and down into the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest. We'll be looking at gusts as high as 30, maybe even 40 miles per hour as that front moves through. And on top of that, as I mentioned, it looks like the timing of the front is going to be such that it's going to be moving through during the hottest, driest time of day, particularly in this area that I have circled in the black circle. So that would include areas such as the East Lolo National Forest, the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest, and the Bitterroot National Forest. And so we are going to be putting up some fire weather watches for that combination of hot, dry, and windy conditions. It also looks quite unstable with that front as well. So that hence the concern for the critical fire weather. Other areas outside the circle certainly still going to be breezy and dry, but not nearly as critical as these areas that we have currently circled in the graphic here. By Sunday, the ridge of high pressure overall gets suppressed a little bit further to the south. And it really looks like this is going to be pretty much the pattern from Sunday going into mid next week, where we'll be in southwest flow aloft. With the ridge suppressed, temperatures will cool slightly, but we're still talking well above normal temperatures for this time of year. I noted in Missoula, our high temperature right now typically would be about 78 degrees, and we're still going to be looking at a forecast of low 90s. So it's a very slight cool down. But with this pattern, it is going to introduce potential for afternoon breezy winds pretty much every day, Sunday afternoon through mid next week. So continued warm, continued dry, and continued breezy winds under this pattern. Now, there are some hints out there of a potential pattern change, and I'm really talking about September 9th through the 11th. So this is out towards next Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And what I'm showing here is something called clusters. One way we can look at potential for pattern changes is to group all the different model solutions out there into kind of groups that look somewhat similar to each other. And then that helps us figure out what kind of probability there is of this pattern change. And so in this image, I wanted to draw your attention to this cluster 1 and cluster 4. Both of these are showing groups of models that are showing a transition in this time frame I mentioned to more of a trough over the area. And if you add up the member percentages, this first cluster is about 32% of all of our forecast models, and cluster 4 is about 20%. So if you add those up, about 50% of our models are now showing this change to certainly cooler and possibly wetter conditions. So that has been gradually increasing, which is starting to increase our confidence that we may see this pattern change late next week. So if that was to occur, we would certainly expect much cooler conditions, closer to normal for this time of year, if not even a little below normal. But on top of that, we can also look at the moisture being shown with these clusters. And again, zooming in on those two clusters that were showing the trough of low pressure, about 50% of those models are also showing certainly wetting rains across most all of the area, with possibly even some higher amounts, and there's certainly some very wet solutions out there. So there is this confidence that's starting to grow. I would still say it's probably only like moderate confidence, but it is out there, and we're starting to see more support that there may be this pattern change coming up. So just as a summary, here is the weather threat matrix. We have Saturday in particularly highlighted for those unstable, hot, dry, windy conditions with that dry cold front coming through. Otherwise, it's slightly better going into next week, but really looks like almost every afternoon could be hot, dry, and breezy moving forward. That's all I have for today. If you have any questions or concerns, absolutely give us a call. Our number is there on the bottom of the slide. Otherwise, our next scheduled briefing is going to occur on Sunday, September 4th. We'll talk to you then.